If you don't vacuum your aquarium, you run the risk of ammonia spikes, which can make your fish sick or even worse, die. That's why in this video, I'll talk about ways to vacuum your aquarium no matter how big or small that will not only save you time and trouble, but also give you some helpful tips and make sure it's done right. So, why vacuum your gravel in the first place? Well, over time, uneaten food, fish waste, and other gunk settle into the substrate. And if left unchecked, this breaks down and releases ammonia and nitrates, which can be harmful to your fish, and it's just kind of nasty. Over time, without regular vacuuming that mixes the substrate around, anaerobic pockets can form. When those are disturbed by fish or even you messing around with your hardscape, they can release ammonia into the water, causing dangerous changes to your water parameters. So overall, just a good idea to keep things clean. Let's talk about some techniques and tips. First, it's worth mentioning that not all gravel vacuums are created equal. The tubes are different sizes and the main ends are even different sizes and widths, and there are major benefits to both. If you've got a small tank, a small siphon tube is the way to go. It not only will fit in tight spaces, but it will have less power, which is a good thing because you get more time to vacuum before all that water is removed. Now, if you're dealing with larger tanks, you've likely got more room to maneuver, more area to vacuum, and you're going to need more horsepower, so wider hoses are definitely the way to go. Before you start, just unplug your heater and your filter to prevent any electrical mishaps. Then, grab your gravel vac, a bucket, or even two isn't the worst idea because in a standard water change, you're aiming for taking out about 30% of your volume, and then some towels, because let's be real, water is probably going to end up where you don't want it. Trust me on this one. Alright, now it's time to get that siphon going, and there are multiple ways to do it. You probably don't want to make a habit of putting your mouth on the tube, especially after you've used it. So here's what you do. With a tight fist and your mouth about a ½ inch above the tube, just start the suction like you normally would, but your mouth won't actually be touching the tube. Don't worry, you will get enough power to get it going. Just make sure you pay attention to where that water is in the line so you don't get any surprises. Alright, the second technique keeps your mouth totally clear of any trouble, but it is a bit tricky. In this case, what you're going to do is dunk the tube in the tank until it fills with water. Then slowly lift the tube up, and as the water starts to suck out of the tube, drop the tube back into the tank and then slowly turn it downward towards the substrate. And voila, you've got suction. And if that's too much work, just grab a priming bulb. You can easily add it to your vacuum tube and a couple squeezes and you're good to go. Alright, so now your suction has started and the clock is ticking with how much water you have to work with, so let's go. Generally, just move the vacuum in a slow, methodical pattern across the tank. Check out the gravel and the substrate and how it's going up, but falling back down because it's heavier than the gunk that is going up and out in the tube. If you ever need to stop or your tube gets filled up or gets a clog, just pinch the tube, which will keep your suction ready to go, but stop the flow, dropping anything that you have in the tube back down into the tank. Over time, you'll figure out where your fish spend their time, and in these areas it helps to push your gravel vac directly into the substrate to get a deeper clean. Now, if you have a sponge filter, they can be a bit messy to take out and clean, and if you do it in chlorinated water, you can even kill all the beneficial bacteria living on it. So, as you're cruising around, just stick your vacuum on this as well and treat it basically like cleaning substrate, while not risking any beneficial bacteria. Alright, sometimes there's situations where you need some extra suction, and I've used this when removing substrate and starting a new tank, or trying to do specific spot suctions like on algae spots in the substrate as well. To do this, just disconnect your vacuum from the end and use the tube directly to remove the substrate. This will create way more power and give you a specific targeted end to work with. You can also try this with a 1/4 inch airline tube, or even just remove the tube from a smaller siphon to remove algae from rocks and woods. A cool trick is actually cutting a 45-degree tip on the end, which will help you stay right on top of a layer without removing too much below it. I like this when cleaning algae-covered sand where I want to remove about 1/8 of an inch or so. Also, if you have substrate spill into other areas, you can use this technique to pick that up. And then once you do that, you can come back with a small cup of new sand and cleanly patch the area. Now, in a situation where you have capped substrate, like with sand for example, the best idea is to use a smaller vac because it will have less power and you'll have more control. Just make sure you drag at an angle to ensure that you don't suck up the soil from below, which if you do, can cause quite a mess. Another common mistake is removing the siphon incorrectly, which can cause a real mess in what you just cleaned. So check this out. First, what you're supposed to do. Option A, tilt the back up and remove it, allowing the rest of the water in the tube to flow into your bucket. Option B is to cap the siphon with your hand and then remove it from the tank. Either way, what you're avoiding is just pulling it directly out of the tank and having this happen. Obviously, vacuuming naturally removes water, so this is a great time for a partial water change. Just make sure, of course, when you refill, you're using dechlorinated water with a water conditioner, or if you're using RO water, you're using a remineralizer to ensure your fish are safe. Alright, so how often should you do this? Well, it depends on your tank size. It also depends on your stocking levels, and it depends on how much you feed your fish. In general, regular vacuuming during water changes is a great way to keep your tank in top shape. Alright, hopefully that was helpful to you. If it was, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one, and keep your fish living their best life.